Welcome to the Horror Bracket Series. I'm your host, Hunter Chambliss. Those are my co-hosts, Chad and Carrie. How's it going, guys?
Going great. I'm so glad to get back into this series. We haven't done one in 2024. It's been a while since we last did our 90s bracket. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah. And we're joined by Jeremy Adams. Jeremy,
Hello.
how's it going, man?
Oh, it's going great. I'm so excited to be here. This is a topic that's very close to my heart. So I'm so excited for this ranking today.
Exactly. Jeremy gave us a lot of great references for other 80s and 70s horror movies. So we are so glad to have you here, Jeremy. So if you guys haven't seen how the Horror Bracket series works, we have a total of 64 movies from the 80s broken up into 32 movies apiece. So this is part one. Part two will be sometime, hopefully not this long down the road. And we have two movies, and we'll each decide which movie should move on by majority rules.
Yeah, and in the larger series, because this is an ongoing series, we've been doing this for quite a while now. I was like, let's try to see if we can go through the decades and just do brackets for like each decade to try and find out what is the greatest horror film ever made, based on like our little bias opinions. Whoever we happen to have on the episode. Oh, there you go. There's a baby.
Did Jeremy drop for a minute, or
yeah, my thing froze for a second. Am I okay now?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so as we've been going on, I was like, let's start with the 2020s. Let's go all the way to like the 30s or something like that. And then at the end, and each bracket that we have, or each decade, we have a singular movie that we pick. But once we get done with all of our decades, we're going to go through and we're going to have a top 8 from each decade. And then that's going to fill in another bracket of 64. So that'll be another two-parter of the championship series to get down to one single film. So if something that you love doesn't win in this series of the 80s, it's okay, because we're going to choose the top 8. So 4 from each bracket. Sorry for the crying. 4 from each bracket. And those movies are going to move into the championship anyways. So, so the top 4 for this episode is going to end up in our final championship series anyway. So, but yeah, let's get this half done, and then we're closer to find out what's the best 1980s horror film.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And if we do have a tie, because there is 4 of us, we will just flip a coin or do something that will edge one movie out from the other. All right, so let's bring up the brackets for today.
Yep, and let's find out what our first matchup is. It is Reanimator versus Monster Squad.
Ooh. Okay.
And this
is going to start for this one.
This was all randomized. I did it like 5 times. So, this a lot of interesting matchups here. But yeah, we can start up at the top. We'll do like Hunter, me, Carrie, Jeremy. And then we'll just keep that pattern.
All right. So my pick will be Reanimator. I think Stuart Gordon directed the hell out of this movie. I love Jeffrey Combs. I love everything involved, how weird and how kind of out there it is. Monster Squad is a very fun family movie, but I think Reanimator, there's so much creativity and kind of passion behind it that the Monster Squad doesn't. So I'm going with Reanimator.
Yep, perfect. For me, it's been a while since I've seen Reanimator. I don't remember loving that one. It's one that I've been meaning to revisit to see if it'll go up in my rankings. But for this one, I think I'm actually going to go Monster Squad. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I'm going to go with that one because I did think it was really fun. I liked the kids coming together to fight the monsters. I like the little weird relationship between the little girl and Frankenstein, Frankenstein, who in like the original like Bride of Frankenstein or whatever, that's not a great relationship. So to see it in this be like a funny, fun relationship, and her going like, no, when he's like going away or whatever, I thought was really great. And it's really funny too. So I'm going to go Monster Squad, Carrie.
I mean, this is not how it's always going to go, but I am wearing a Reanimator shirt. Yeah, I feel very similar to Hunter on this one. I like the Monster Squad a lot, but Reanimator, I think I just prefer more than the Monster Squad. The Monster Squad doesn't hold that nostalgia for me that I know it holds for a lot of folks. I just didn't see it until like later in life. And Reanimator, I just think is so awesome.
I almost thought like you were like, I have so much nostalgia for Reanimator. I was like, when did what age did you watch
Reanimator until later in life? But I feel like the Monster Squad is like more of a family movie.
Yeah. Fair. Jeremy.
Well, I feel like I might be the only person here that was actually a kid in the 80s. So I saw a lot of these movies when they came out, and a lot of them too young. I do remember very clearly seeing Reanimator as a kid, but yeah, I'm so excited because I have everything ranked right here, so I know exactly where things are gonna go. But yeah, when I was younger, I loved the Monster Squad. It's such a fun take on the Universal monsters. But the last time that I went back to watch it, it didn't quite hold. There was some cheesiness in the acting, not the best kid actors and stuff. It's a really fun movie and I really like it. And good direction from Fred Decker, but Reanimator, I think is an all-timer. Just the mix of H.P. Lovecraft and the performance of Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton. They're just horror legends and they're just both so great in that movie. And just the whole sequence involving the professor and his severed head coming to life is just some of the most ingenious stuff. And it's disgusting, it's horrifying, but it's also hilarious. And it makes Reanimator kind of up there for me in that Evil Dead 2 kind of horrific, but really funny. And Stuart Gordon does it just about as well as Sam Raimi. So I will go Reanimator.
Hell yeah. All right. So we're going to have Reanimator moving on. Next matchup is The Stepfather versus From Beyond. Ooh. Interesting matchup here. All right, I'll start with this one. I haven't seen From Beyond, and we were literally just watching The Stepfather before we started recording this. And I mean, I'm just going to make it. It's pretty obvious. I'm not going to vote for the one I haven't seen, and I was actually digging The Stepfather. I like Terry O'Quinn a lot from Lost, so to see him in this role is like really interesting. If you haven't seen The Stepfather, the beginning of this movie is wild. Like it starts out like with the way it reveals stuff. You're just like, holy shit. Okay. I was like, I don't know. I mean, it's probably going to start off like slow and, build up to something. And then I had Elliot in the room, our son. And then at one point I went, all right, covering the eyes. But no, it is actually really thrilling. And I'm just like really curious to see how this is going to end. So I'll go The Stepfather. Carrie.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat where I haven't seen From Beyond, and we're almost all the way through The Stepfather. We're trying to get as much of it in as we could before this. And The Stepfather was actually surprising to me. I wasn't expecting it to be, not that it's like the best movie in the world, but I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it actually is. So I'm going with The Stepfather.
Yep, Jeremy.
Jeremy?
Well, I think I'm the one person that has seen From Beyond. I literally just watched it for the first time. It's one that I hadn't caught up with in all my years. And it's really cool that we just talked about Reanimator, because this is actually Stuart Gordon's follow-up to Reanimator. And he brought Jeffrey Combs and Robert Crampton back, and again, it's an H.P. Lovecraft story, and it's about they create this machine called the Resonator, and it opens up like a portal to another dimension, and it gets really disgusting and lots of body horror and gore, like horror comedy, along the lines that we got in Reanimator. And in some aspects, there are things that I prefer about it, because the lead actor Bruce Abbott in Reanimator kind of sucks, and then they brought Ken Foray from Dawn of the Dead to be in From Beyond. So that was a big improvement. So yeah, it's a really fun movie. Guys should definitely check it out. But it fell like both that and The Stepfather are actually not too high on my list. They're both I ranked them in kind of the 20s, and The Stepfather I do have a little higher because, I think From Beyond, you got a lot of that in Reanimator, and it's kind of like they're doing it again, so it doesn't quite have the novelty that Reanimator has. And then I just think The Stepfather is really good because of Terry O'Quinn. He's so unhinged and crazy and awesome in that movie. It's not the greatest move. Like it falls to some of the things that a lot of 80s movies fell to. And like, there's a really unnecessary scene where the teenage daughter's in the shower and it's like, for no reason, we're just going to have the teenage girl be naked and have a nudity scene. It's like some of that kind of stuff that they did in the 80s, but because of Terry O'Quinn, I think I would put it above From Beyond. It is a movie definitely worth watching. And the second one's not too bad either. So I'll pick The Stepfather.
All right, so Stepfather moves on.
Hunter, did you talk about Stepfather or From Beyond?
I have not seen either of these movies.
All right.
Did make it down my list.
They're definitely worth watching. Yeah, I would say they're both really fun. They're not boring.
Sweet. Looking back at them, though, I probably, like, if it would have gone down to a tie or whatever, I probably would have gone with From Beyond, just because, like, I love the Stuart Gordon Reanimator types of, like, body horror, so that kind of resonates to me more.
There's
than
a really
Stepfather.
iconic scene. I forgot to mention where Barbara Crampton, through machinations of the plot, ends up in like S&M gear. It's like a really famous scene. So
I'm gonna have to watch this movie now.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. It's worth watching.
All right. So we'll go to the next matchup, which is The Blob, the remake, The Blob, versus Fright Night, the original.
Ooh.
This is a very interesting matchup. This is actually might be a hard one. Carrie, start.
Honestly, it's a little hard for me because I don't particularly enjoy either of these movies.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, which was surprising to me. Fright Night I was expecting to absolutely love, and it deserves a rewatch for me. Because who knows? I probably watched it while I was distracted or something. I think I'm actually going to give this to The Blob because for me it's just a little bit more fun, and I love the body horror in it. And Fright Night, I don't know, I couldn't get into it for some reason.
All right, Jeremy?
These are both really close on my list. They're kind of right in the middle. I love both these movies. I think that Chuck Russell's direction on the Blob remake is so awesome. Taking a really fun 50s horror movie and then making it just way grosser with the Blob turning people inside out and stuff is really great. I really like Kevin Dillon as the lead. But I'm going to give the slight edge to Fright Night. I really love that movie. I think that Chris Sarandon is the vampire in that movie. He's so awesome. He's so charismatic and scary. I like William Ragsdale as the lead, and of course Roddy McDowall, who's so awesome as the late night host who gets pulled into this whole thing to try to fight the vampire. It's just a really fun kind of spoof on the genre, but it actually is pretty scary, and it gets really gross toward the end with the vampire effects and stuff. So they're both really fun movies, but I'll slight edge to Fright Night for me.
All right, on to me. I have seen both of these films. I just watched Fright Night the other day for the first time. It's been a while since I've watched The Blob, but I have to go with the one that has Humperdinck from Princess Bride in it. So Fright Night for me. Chad.
The Blob.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because I'm going to go The Blob.
All right.
It is very close though, but I'm going to make it a tie. I really like both of these movies. I was surprised with actually both of these because I didn't know like if I would end up liking like the remake of Fright Night more. I didn't know if like the original would be dated or whatever, but I think all the effects in the original Fright Night are really great. So they really, really hold up for me. And I do like all the performances and stuff. And I think the remake, like, I don't know. I mean, it's also good, but like, it doesn't really do, I think, the effects as well and stuff. So I don't know, like the original Fright Night just really surprised me. But then the Blob, I don't know, the Blob, yeah, it's like I haven't seen the original The Blob, but I've heard like a lot of people say this one's even better. Like it's just the way they do the effects and just like all of the town just going kind of crazy, I think is really, really fun. So yeah, I think The Blob is the slightly better movie, but they're both very, very close, which is why it's tough. But I kind of wanted to do a tie break here. Do you want me to do the tail flip?
Yeah, either way is fine with me.
Well,
Fair enough. They're very close on my list, so it's totally fair.
We'll start off with Hunter at the top. Call heads or tails, because you did Fright. So
tails.
All right. So if it's tails, it's Fright Night. If it's heads, it's Blob.
Mm-hmm.
You see her flip a coin. You said tails?
Yes.
It's tails.
Yay!
Go.
Right
Friday
now.
Night moves on.
All right. Moving on to the next matchup, which is Hellraiser versus Pet Cemetery with an S.
Interesting.
And are we starting with Jeremy this
Jeremy.
time? Yes.
No. All right. Well, this is fun because these are literally right next to each other on my list. And I actually flipped and flopped them a couple times, but I have had time to think about it, and I have decided which one I would pick of the two. And it's probably not surprising because Hunter knows I'm a huge Stephen King fan, and Pet Sematary is a movie I saw when it came out when I was 10 years old, left a huge imprint on me. There's just stuff in that movie when you see it as a kid, Zelda, and when the little kid comes at the end and he's got the little blade.
No
and
fair.
There's no fair. Yeah, there's just stuff that really stays with you from that movie. And since then I've read the book and all that stuff. But I also really love Hellraiser. I think it's amazing that Clive Barker, who was a novelist, just decided he was going to make a movie one day and took his short story and made this crazy ass movie out of it. And his Hellraiser is so wild, so different from many of the other horror at that time, dealing with sexual things and how extreme will you go and trying to just push everything to the limit. And yeah, it's a really great movie. I think that, you get more of the Cenobites and stuff in the sequels. I think there's not enough of Pinhead and that stuff in the first movie. It's really more about Frank and this kind of more contained story. So I would give the edge to Pet Sematary just for the impact it had on me. For how good the story is and the fact that, maybe Hellraiser isn't the best Hellraiser movie just because, they really were able to expand the mythology going forward.
This one is very tough for me because I love both of these films. Fred Gwynn in Pet Sematary is amazing. He's awesome. But I do not like the lead actor in Pet Sematary. I thought he was kind of boring. He didn't really have a personality, and what gives a slight edge to Hellraiser for me is the Frank coming back alive. Seeing the reanimation of Frank was so beautifully done. The haunting score in the back, the reversing of the practical effects make it look like it's coming from the ground instead of coming onto his body like that. The technical ability of it, the acting I think is way better in Hellraiser. So I'm going with Hellraiser.
For me, this is not hard, although I do like both movies. I'm going to go Pet Sematary because kind of the same thing Jeremy said. Stephen King is probably my favorite author, so there you go. But Hellraiser, I agree, does have a lot of really cool makeup and effects that they use, and I actually kind of like that it's more of a contained movie. I like the Cenobite stuff, but I like how you watch Hellraiser and the first Hellraiser, and you might expect more of a lot of the Cenobite stuff, and you get a little bit of it, but you get more of kind of a different story too. If you're watching it now and you're going back and you're like, isn't this the one with the crazy Cenobite stuff? And you get more. But Pet Sematary is also kind of the same thing. It's not just about the pets being buried in the cemetery and Gage coming back and all that stuff. There's stuff to do with the guy in the hospital and all that stuff. And I remember like the book is much better than the movie is.
Yeah.
The book is freaking incredible. One of the scariest books I've ever read. But I think the movie, it's kind of campy in some ways, I think. I like Fred Gwynn a lot in it.
Yep.
I also really like I forget the guy, the actor's name, but Creepy Little Gage is really funny.
Yeah.
And then you also have like Jeremy pointed out, what's the sister's name again? Zelda. That's one of the scariest moments in a horror film. It's just the way she bends and stuff. It's just so creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's like that real life type of horror.
Yeah.
Like the scariest part of the movie is like what illness and disease can
kind of
do
like
to
The
someone.
Exorcist.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna go Pet Cemetery. I'd say handily, but it's just because I'm not a huge Hellraiser person and I'm more of a Stephen King. It has to be just a really bad Stephen King adaptation for me to vote for the other one or another movie that I really love. So I'll go Pet Cemetery here.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Chad and Jeremy here. I love Stephen King, and Hellraiser. I think I agree with Jeremy. It's just I would love the Cenobites in Hellraiser, but there's just not quite enough of them for me to like put this movie like over the top over Pet Sematary, which I think is genuinely pretty scary, but also like some very unintentionally funny moments.
Yeah. And that Pet Sematary remake was not good.
Oh,
in my
it was
opinion.
horrible.
I did not like
it was so bad.
Moving on. 2. Gremlins classic versus Sleepaway Camp. Tough one? Let's find out.
Oh no, I love both movies. Gremlins is a classic. And it's probably going to win, but I have to go with the one I've watched more, and that's Sleepaway Camp, one of my favorite B-horror movies. The practical effects are great. It is a much better Friday the 13th movie because it has more blood and gore in it than the original Friday movie did. Felissa Rose is amazing as Angela, and the big twist reveal at the end literally caught me off guard so much that it shocked me. I had to rewatch it again. I absolutely love Sleepaway Camp, but I know that Gremlins is going to win, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, no judgment here, Hunter, but I find it very strange that you've seen Sleepaway Camp more than you've seen Gremlins. It's fine.
It's an 80s slasher, man.
I do actually like both movies. Sleepaway Camp actually surprised me. I only saw it for the first time recently. I don't know if like from today's perspective, it would be seen as kind of problematic, or if it holds up. I'm not really sure, but I know it does.
That's a different discussion.
It is, but it's a part of the movie where it does talk about gender, and there's like a really cool reveal. But yeah, I'm not sure, if it holds up to today's standards, but I do like the reveal. I like all of the slasher elements like before the reveal, and the acting's really great. It's just kind of like the way the story unfolds.
The iron scene.
But it's just not enough for me to defeat Gremlins, which is an all-timer. It's that and Gremlins 2 are both just phenomenal, and I would love to see a Gremlins 3, but Gremlins 1 is one that I return to most Christmases. I don't know if I've seen it every single Christmas, but like most Christmases, because it's a perfect horror Halloween movie and a perfect Christmas movie, and I just love Gizmo. I think he's one of the best characters. And you know how it goes so wild and crazy in Gremlins 2? You still get some craziness in the first Gremlins. Like it goes
hard,
hard, just not as hard. I dig that, and I really like the story. It feels very like a Spielberg movie because I think he had a hand in it.
Yeah, pretty
Um,
good.
but it just really feels very classic and very 80s. So I'm going Gremlins. Carrie, show us your Mogwai.
Oh, I used to have one.
Mogwai.
Oh, actually, I think I do have one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Gremlins here. Sorry, Hunter.
I
Sleepaway Camp.
understand.
Yeah, Sleepaway Camp is really fun, but Gremlins I think is more fun but also like has these like heartwarming moments as well, and it overall just and the score is like incredible. Like
Yeah.
I
The
listen
score is
to it
incredible.
a lot.
Yeah.
And when he goes, bye, Billy. Well, we don't know where Jeremy's gonna go, so let's find out.
I think we do, Jeremy.
Well, just again saying how old I am. I was old enough that I saw Gremlins and Ghostbusters both in the theater when they
Wow.
came out. I was 5 years old,
That's awesome.
and legendary, experiences for young me. And of the two, Gremlins is actually my favorite, and that's just a movie that's really close to my heart. My wife is awesome enough that she got us tickets to go see a new showing of Gremlins with Zach Galligan there, the lead actor who played Billy. Did a talk. Yeah, he did a talk after the movie, and I got a picture with him and stuff. So yeah, Gremlins
That's
means
awesome.
a lot to me. I love Gremlins too, but I'm one of those people that prefers the first one. I love how zany and cartoony the second one is, but the original is just the perfect mix of Christmas and some scary stuff and great practical puppet effects and a wonderful character with Gizmo. Sleepaway Camp is one I caught up with more recently because I'd seen the internet memes and stuff, and it is a really fun movie. It's just I do have to admit, like, the teen slasher thing is not my favorite genre, so it's just the level of acting and pacing in those movies is a little tougher for me. But this is one of the better ones, and actually gives you a crazy twist where a lot of those movies are not as surprising. But yeah, it's going to be Gremlins.
Hell yeah. It's gonna be Gremlins, Hunter. Moving
I had to
on.
give Sleepaway Camp some love, man.
I know.
There are a lot of big Sleepaway Camp fans, so you're repping a lot of people there, Hunter. It's very fair.
Yeah.
Moving on to The Howling
Ooh.
versus The Watcher in the Woods. This is
one I put in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And we'll start. Are we starting with me? Yes.
Yeah.
This one's interesting. I kind of listened to The Watcher in the Woods. I didn't really watch it. Because it's on YouTube, I just kind of like had it in the background. And The Howling I did watch. I don't remember really liking The Howling all that much. I remember the effects were really good, but I remember like just thinking like this is like always going to be like second fiddle to an American Werewolf in London, and they're both kind of similar, but I really like the story and the effects more in American Werewolf in London. So I don't know. It sucks that I got to sit there and compare, but I do. And I was just like, I mean, I like that what Dee Wallace is in The Howling and stuff. That's really cool. But I just I don't grasp anything in my head like where I'm like, that was a really cool moment or plot from The Howling that I remember. The Watcher in the Woods, though, I also didn't really like gleam like that like great of a story, but then again, like I said, I didn't like pay 100% attention to it, unfortunately. However, I am going to go with The Watcher in the Woods because I think it's really cool that it's like this like cute little like ghost story like that families can watch, and it's it's got like little kids and stuff like that. Yeah, I just thought you don't get a lot of those, especially from I know I just get like Monster Squad and Gremlins and stuff. So why not go with The Watcher in the Woods, another cute like kind of family horror movie? So I'll go with that one. Carrie.
Okay. Yeah, I actually think I only saw a few minutes of Watcher in the Woods. And then Chad, you must have watched the rest without me, I think, and I didn't get a chance to watch it today. You listened to the rest without me. But the Howling I have
Shit.
seen.
I guess I'm, sleeping on the couch tonight.
Sounds familiar.
The Howling I have seen though. So just because I have seen the Howling all the way through, and I think the effects are really cool, and like Chad said, I'm really on the same page with Chad. Dee Wallace is really good in it. Yeah, I'm pretty similar where it wasn't, my favorite or anything, but since I have seen it all the way through, I'll go with the Howling.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I was the one that wanted to put Watcher in the Woods on the list, just kind of for historical reasons, because this was actually a Disney movie, and it's just a crazy piece of history where Disney, their animated movies weren't doing very well. They're trying to figure out, what they were going to do going into the 80s. I think this was before Michael Eisner came in the company, so it was like a weird transition period. And they did 2 horror movies, Watcher in the Woods and Something Wicked This Way Comes. And at that same time, they did like The Black Hole, which is like a creepy sci-fi movie, and Tron, which is its own thing. So it's just a really interesting little period in Disney history. And it's a pretty neat movie. It's based on a book, and it's like this family moves into this house in the woods, and weird things start happening. And Betty Davis is like their neighbor, and she's really fun in the movie. And it's like, what's going on? And then it like takes a really wild twist in the third act, where it's now a sci-fi movie and not a horror movie. So it's kind of it's a really strange, it's a really odd movie. Kind of the cool thing about it is they had like the trailer when you watch Disney VHSs in the 80s, like the Watcher in the Woods trailer would be on a lot of the VHSs, and it terrified a whole generation of kids. Just that like 2-minute trailer just scared the crap out of all these kids wanting to watch Sleeping Beauty or whatever. So that's like a fun little footnote. But
scare them kids.
Yeah. But having said all that, and it was cool to have it, I'm actually going to go with The Howling. I actually really like The Howling. I think that it's actually makes a good double feature with American Werewolf, because it's about adult couples that are like having marital problems and stuff, and they go to this retreat in the woods, and the whole werewolf thing is kind of like a metaphor about the things that these couples are holding inside that want to come out and rip apart their marriages. And there are some really great monster effects. It's actually Rob Bottin did the werewolf effects in this one, who a year later would do The Thing. So I really like it. I think Dee Wallace is great. I would give the edge to American Werewolf, but I do think it holds its own and has its own place, and it's an early Joe Dante as well, just a few years before Gremlins. So I actually think it's quite a bit better than Watcher in the Woods. I'm gonna give it to The Howling.
All right, so I've only seen one of these, and that's The Howling. I did not get a chance to watch The Watcher in the Woods, but I really enjoy The Howling. I love these like early 80s like monster movies, and this is a really perfect example of that. But you get a mixture of great, not only great practical effects, great acting. Dee Wallace is great. The practical effects are fantastic. So yeah, I'm voting for The Howling.
All right. Yep. Howling moves on, and we're going to go to the next matchup, which is Possession versus
a can of worms.
A Nightmare on Elm Street. So may or may not be close, depending on who you are. Karen.
Yeah. Possession is an extremely interesting film, and while I respect it, it is off the wall wild. I don't have particular interest. I'm sure maybe one day I'll watch it again, but I don't have any particular interest in watching it anytime soon again. But it was really fun when this first came on Shudder. I think a year or two ago. It's pretty recent, and it like came back into the lexicon of horror discussions, and a bunch of us who hadn't seen it before got to see it and form opinions on it, which is awesome. But yeah, I'm gonna give it to Nightmare on Elm Street here, which is just such a classic, so terrifying. Granted, a very straightforward movie, but there's a reason Freddy Krueger is like one of the most known horror villains. He is terrifying in this movie. There's so many incredible, iconic scenes, and the acting is like really good for a teen slasher movie. Obviously, Wes Craven's direction is phenomenal. Yeah.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I actually just saw Possession for the first time this week, so this is kind of cool to be talking about them. That was a movie that I believe wasn't really readily available in the States until like 2002 when they did like a reissue and re-showed it in theaters. So that's really when it was like fully released here. It had been like it was really controversial back in the 80s, so it was like they wouldn't release it and stuff in like its full cut. So yeah, it was really cool getting to see it. Like Carrie said, it's a really interesting movie. The director that made it was a Polish filmmaker who had just gone through a really horrible divorce. So he was like pulling all of this angst and stuff of his divorce and just going to the ultimate degree, making it like crazy, surreal, like horror about what it feels like when your relationship's falling apart and you're both not good parents and bad things are happening to the kid and all of this stuff going on. But I do think the movie, it's so out there. It's so like everything is played to like 11 the whole time that I think there are times in the movie where it actually becomes unintentionally funny. And you're like, Sam Neill's just like going off and you just can't help but kind of laugh at it as opposed to kind of get what you want to get, the horror that you want to get from it. But I will say Isabelle Adjani, who's a French actress, is incredible in the movie. There's a scene that she has in a subway that involves like a crazy kind of supernatural miscarriage that is like, it's worth watching the movie just for that scene alone. It's really good. But yes, I'm going to give the edge to Nightmare on Elm Street. It's a classic. It's one that I saw like with my cousins at a slumber party in the 80s, and like the phone scene with him, I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy, like just scared us all. And it was like one of the biggest reactions I remember having watching a movie as a kid. And yes, Freddy is legitimately scary in the first movie. A few movies later, he would become more of the jokester. But, the whole concept of, him killing them in their dreams and the idea that the parents did this thing that he's coming back for the kids. There's just so many great ideas that Wes had in that movie, and it really worked. So, and it's a classic for a reason. And I still think one of the best of those franchises, where a lot of them, don't hold up. There's a lot of great movies in that franchise, and there wouldn't be if the first one wasn't so good. So definitely Nightmare for me.
Yeah, I'm wearing a Nightmare on Elm Street shirt. I've never seen Possession, so overall, like.
It's freaking crazy. You do need, it's on Shudder. You do need to check it out just to watch it because it is nuts.
Yeah, I heard like it is a wild movie, and like I actually have Shudder now, so I'm probably gonna check it out soon.
Cool.
But yeah, A Nightmare on Elm Street's a classic. I mean, when you think of the horror icons, you think of Freddy Krueger. This one, he's very creepy, very great lines like "I am God," which is amazing. So many great death scenes, like Tina's, Johnny Depp's character, which I can't think of his name for some reason. Glenn. Yes, his death scene is iconic. And Heather Langenkamp is incredible as Nancy Thompson, and you got John Saxon in it, who's a freaking legend. Like overall, yes, Nightmare on Elm Street is a classic.
Is Black Christmas on your 70s list?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Okay. I should just look at the list.
Yes, you should.
Sorry.
Yeah, so we'll get there. We'll get there one day. But for now, on this first part of the 80s, Possession versus A Nightmare on Elm Street. Possession, like you guys have been saying, is a very crazy movie. It gives me a lot of like David Lynch vibes, which is a good thing because I love David Lynch movies. I love Twin Peaks, and Possession. I don't know what the hell I watched, but it was something. And I'm excited for Hunter to actually check it out because I know as soon as he does, he's going to be messaging us like,
what is this? What is this?
It's going to be really funny. And I actually want to revisit it at some point just to see if I get anything more out of it because I did just get a lot of weirdness. So I kind of agree. It's not one that I saw that blew me away that's going to dethrone a classic like A Nightmare on Elm Street. I think there are movies on this list that could, but A Nightmare on Elm Street I could see going very far. In fact, one time over at the movie Battlegrounds, I fought Mr. Austin Pez Howell, and we were fighting what's the best horror movie of the 1980s. And it was this Nightmare on Elm Street versus The Thing, and I won with The Nightmare on Elm Street. So I think it's incredible. I love the concept. I love how Wes, gives us the concept. And he doesn't give us too much Freddy. We don't have funny Freddy yet. And it's just like really scary. And then even when like they build up this iconic figure so well in this movie, that like when in the scene where Nancy's mother is telling her about what they did, it's very scary. And it's just like you're thinking about like, and we have one of his gloves and stuff. And it's just so creepy, like that scene. And you just get a lot out of it. And I think Heather Langenkamp is like one of the all-stars of like just horror in general. She's like one of the best final girls, if not the best one, because she's just so great. I love how she's just basically on her own because everyone else is going to fall asleep and everyone else is just doing their own thing or don't believe her. So she's got to have coffee like pot right next to her bed. It really rules. And I love like the logic of the movie and just such a cool premise of, something can kill you in your dreams. So you have to stay awake. And like Hunter mentioned, all of the iconic deaths and like the innovation that they had to do to like rotate sets and stuff to get all those effects. And, it's just really a phenomenal movie that like, there's a lot of really good Freddy movies, but I think this one just really isn't never going to be topped, even if they bring them back or something. So this is just easily one of the best movies. So I'll go that one as well. Carrie.
I have one first.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, she went first.
Moving on to the next match. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer versus Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
The two most opposite movies imaginable. That is funny.
Jeremy, you can start.
I just rewatched Killer Clowns from Outer Space. It was one that I loved as a kid, but I probably hadn't seen in 30 years. Didn't quite hold up for me as well. I love all of the clown effects. It's, the awesome practical effects that they designed these crazy alien clowns, some good sets, fun ideas of how they kill you with like popcorn that turns into like little clown snake monsters and ray guns that turn you into cotton candy. There's a lot of fun stuff in there. But it's just the lead actors in that movie, like the main like three actors, are so bad that they don't really sell the comedy or kind of keep you engaged a lot watching the movie. So didn't quite hold up for me. And then Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer is probably the one movie on this bracket today that is it's a movie that's gonna depress you. It's gonna make you feel uncomfortable and just not good about humankind. It's different than a lot of the other movies we're talking about because it actually has some basis in reality. It's largely inspired by the serial killer Henry Lee Lucas and the other serial killer Ottis O'Toole, and the two of them committed some of their killings together and stuff. And Michael Rooker gives like one of the great like breakthrough performances, basically playing a guy who's inspired by Henry Lee Lucas, who's just dead-eyed and just for whatever reason will just kill people just to do it. And, we think of a lot of serial killers like Silence of the Lambs, like they're these really elevated things. Like, he's like this erudite cannibal who's really intelligent and all this stuff. But the reality of it is a lot of these guys are just like scummy guys, who just go from place to place, have no money, and are just like, they're just scumbags, and they're just watching them and seeing what they do is just disgusting and horrible, and it's not fun. It's not like for scares or for thrills. It's just showing you the depravity of humanity. And I think that the movie is one of the all-time great like final moments involving the reveal of a briefcase, where you don't have to see what happened, but just seeing that case tells you all you need to know, and it's just the ultimate sad moment in that film. So I'll go with Henry. Not a fun movie, but a really important one, especially in the 80s. Like, people, especially in the States, weren't really making movies like that then. That's something that, you would see later on, more films like that, and certainly in like other countries like France and things, a lot more extreme movies that kind of deal with the actual depravity and not just like trying to thrill you.
Yeah, so I have watched both these films. And as Jeremy said, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer is a very depressing watch. So for that reason, I mean, Henry is probably the better movie, but I have so much fun with Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and it's the practical effects are great. The score is fun and energetic. You've got some really innovative kills. The acting is somewhat not that good, but I can rewatch Killer Clowns way more than I can Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. And for a fun factor, that's the movies I'm gonna rewatch more and more over something that's technically good but very depressing.
Fair.
So that's my pick.
Yeah, that's not normally necessarily how I judge movies myself. So I am gonna go Henry as well. Killer Clowns, I do think is really fun. I watched it for the first time not too long ago, actually, with Carrie, and I like a lot of the how far they went with the concept. I think actually like it's creepy how they like keep bodies inside of cotton candy,
Yeah.
which is really gross. But I do like a lot of the comedy aspects. Like in the very beginning, you got like the old man and his dog walking around, and I just found like that part to be like really funny, and also kind of gave me like David Lynch vibes. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, Henry, I agree. If you, I just side note before I forgot, I wanted to mention there's a great song that I love called Henry Lee with Nick Cage and Nick Cave
Yeah.
and PJ Harvey that is about Henry Lee. You can listen to the song and then watch the movie. But I
Nicolas
love
Cage. Yes.
Nicolas Cave.
Cave. Nick Cave.
He gave us Fred Hand from Scream. Okay, he's important.
I know.
Yeah.
So, Henry, I do agree. I love how it's a very like realistic portrayal of a serial killer. And I think Michael Rooker gives us a performance because like the first time I ever knew Michael Rooker was from like Guardians of the Galaxy. Oh no, The Walking Dead, and then Guardians of the Galaxy. And then I was like, wait, this guy's like an actor that was acting before The Walking Dead. Interesting. And then I saw Henry, and then I was like, wow, okay, this guy has like so much range. He's such a really great actor. And I think it shows in Henry. So I'm gonna go with that one. I like the fun of Killer Clowns, but Henry I think is just a really good movie. So
Yeah.
Carrie.
Sorry. Sorry.
Fine.
I'm gonna tie it up.
Oh wow!
I tend to vote for stuff that I can rewatch a little bit more, unless it's like just a complete masterpiece. Which Henry is a fantastic movie, and I think there's the acting in Henry far outsees the acting in Killer Clowns. But yeah, like Hunter, if I'm gonna rewatch one, I'm probably gonna rewatch Killer Clowns because Henry is just so depressing, and especially knowing it's based on true events. Yeah, it's just difficult to watch. So
all right, so we'll flip a coin. I'll just choose heads. So if it's heads, then it'll go with what I voted for, Henry. If it's tails, it's Killers Clowns. Hey Siri, flip a coin. And it's tails. So Killer Clowns.
Yeah, Killer Clowns.
All right.
Woohoo!
And then we're gonna go to the other
Outer
side.
space. Do you love
First-
the song?
Yeah.
And the entire comment section is gonna burn us for that, Carrie.
The first
Whatever.
16 are done. So now we're gonna go into the second half, starting with the stuff
Ooh.
versus Poltergeist.
Ah.
Yes. Okay.
uh,
Are we on to me or is it Carrie?
We're starting with you.
It's you, Hunter.
All right, so I've only watched the stuff once, and that was for a trivia match I had to write. I freaking love Poltergeist, though. It's a classic. It's got, again, kind of like a Spielberg-esque, kind of adventure theme, but it's also very scary, which I love. So yeah, I'm going with Poltergeist for my selection.
I know I'm gonna be like crazy outvoted, but I'm going the stuff here.
That's fair.
Really interesting. it's one that actually really surprised me. I was like, I like this concept, and I like how it's like this thing that like what it talks about, like with kind of like commercialism. It's the stuff. I like how it's everyone's like addicted to this stuff. And so I like it's like kind of like a what do you call it? Like an episode of a show, but like made into a movie. And I think it's really, really incredible. Although I'm mostly voting for it because I think it's hella underrated, because I hadn't heard of it until I was like looking through like Arrow Video. And then I was like, what is this movie? And then I saw it, and then I was like, I actually really like this one. And Poltergeist, I really do like also, but it's one where it's one that's seen as a classic that I don't find myself necessarily wanting to revisit a lot, and I do kind of want to rewatch the stuff. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I like Poltergeist a lot, but I don't know. Carrie.
Yeah, I really like the stuff. Like Chad said, it was like actually a really surprising movie, and I think it's hilarious. Also has like great commentary about consumerism, and the special effects are pretty great too. But yeah, Poltergeist for me that's what I'm gonna go with. I think it's a classic for a reason. There's just so many scary moments. I love how you think that as the poltergeist is gone, and then everything just like ramps up to 11 at the
Great
end.
ending.
The characters are phenomenal, like just the way this family interacts, and just a fantastic film. I really love it.
Jeremy?
Yeah, and I actually just watched the stuff for the first time, just I think yesterday. So
Wow.
yeah, and it's really cool. I actually haven't seen a lot of Larry Cohen films. He's he did It's Alive, he did Q the Winged Serpent, he did a lot of like B movies in this era that have a lot of them have developed a following over the years. He actually wrote another movie that we're going to talk about, and I'll mention that when we get to it. But it's a really cool movie. I love Michael Moriarty. He's in a lot of Larry Cohen movies. He went on to be the first DA on Law and Order. He's a really great actor, and he's having a lot of fun in this stuff, playing this kind of like folksy kind of Southern guy who's like a corporate fixer. So he's like secretly kind of diabolical, but he disarms everybody with like his charm. It's a wonderful character. And everything Carrie said, a lot of cool effects, and just the whole concept of consumerism gone mad and literally killing our people is really great. But Poltergeist for me is an all-timer. This is, if you're a kid in the 80s, Poltergeist is like the holy Bible. This is one of those movies like right next to E.T. that came out the same year that you would just watch and watch with my parents countless times. And it's just so many iconic sequences. And the fact that there's things like she jumps into the pool at the end and there were real skeletons in the pool is just like all these crazy little details. The scene where the guy, pulls his face off is like something that cheesy now, but at the time was just like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. It's a classic movie, and Tobe Hooper is credited as director, but Spielberg was on set a lot, and there's some debate that Spielberg might have kind of taken over as director at some points. He did co-write. It's one of the few movies that Spielberg wrote the screenplay for. So for me, it's got to be Poltergeist, but definitely watch the stuff. It's a cool movie, and it made me want to watch more Larry Cohen for sure.
Yeah, that's ultimately why I chose it. So. Yeah. All right. We have Poltergeist moving on. And then we're going to go to the next matchup, which is Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 versus The Dead Zone.
Oh, my God.
Ooh.
All right.
We're on to you, Chad.
With me? Or Carrie?
Yeah, with you.
With me. That's right. All right. All right. So Hunter is the one that wanted to put Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 on there, because there's one line in there. So
the whole movie is fine. Come on.
No, it's basically a rehash of the first movie, and then
so is Evil Dead 2.
No, it's not.
No, it's reused footage, Hunter. They reused the footage from the first.
Very
movie.
Different.
It's different. Yeah.
We'll get there. We can actually have that debate if you want, Hunter. But it's basically like, how in some movies they have they'll have like a thing where they show like maybe the first scene from the first movie, and then they'll show the continuation of it. I think don't they kind of do that in Halloween 2 or something like that?
Yeah.
And Silent Night,
Well,
Deadly
like Rocky 2, the beginning of Rocky 2 shows the
Mhm.
fight from the first movie, like that kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And so this one, I feel like it's like half the movie is
It's like
the
40 minutes, I believe.
which is insane.
Yeah.
And then I know like the big famous line, Garbage Day is from this movie, but I feel like if you want to look at like what's the better movie, it's the first one. That one's actually kind of interesting and stuff. And some people argue that it's actually a good movie, although some people might not. I like it, don't love it, the first one. But the second one, you're watching the first movie until you get to the line or the part where they start actually trying to tell another story, and then you get the line. So I would have included the first one personally, but I didn't care all that much. So I was fine with doing the second one because I don't really particularly love either. And one of these days, I kind of want to go through and just like watch all of them because I know there's a lot of them.
There's like 9 of them.
And people have like opinions on like 5 is actually interesting.
Fifth
So
is
like,
the fifth one's really good.
Yeah, so
That's
I'm
the
just
toy
like,
maker, right?
Yeah.
so I'm just like, okay, I need to watch through some of these. But yeah, I actually just watched, I believe, The Dead Zone for the first time. I've read the book. The book's really good. And the movie I actually really liked as well. So, and it's a full movie. It doesn't take from anything else. It's a full story, complete on its own. So the Dead Zone, I think is really good. I really like Christopher Walken in it. I feel very, very sad for the character because it's a very depressing movie where a guy gets into an accident. He develops like powers, but then it's like, with like Monk, it's like, it's a gift and a curse, kind of a deal. And so, you get to see his gifts and he helps people, but then it's like, also like a curse because like he becomes like defined by that. He's like haunted by it. And then like, all he really wants to do is have his old life back with the woman that he loved that has moved on because he was in a coma for 5 years. And so it's just really, really sad. And it goes to a place, but I know a lot of people have talked about, since we had our previous president, Donald Trump, that the president or the future president from the Dead Zone is basically
Stilton. Yeah.
And I really, Martin Sheen, and I really like that aspect of the movie too. And because the protagonist may or may not try and foil the candidate for president at one point, and I like how he may or may not have done it. I think is really, really interesting. And yeah, so I like the Dead Zone quite a bit. So I'll go that.
Yeah. It's interesting actually. I read the Dead Zone. It's definitely like during the pandemic, I feel like, so while Donald Trump was president, and it comes across in the movie. I watched this for the first time today. It comes across in the movie for sure. It comes across even more in the book, I think, just because they're able to devote more time to it in the book. It's very scary. And yeah, it's interesting that Stephen King, it might just be just because it is like a predictable thing that just happens sometimes. But that Stephen King was able to like kind of pinpoint that many, many years ahead of time. Or maybe there are just always, I'm sure always people like that who exist in politics and in the world. This is an interesting matchup because I think it is like one movie that's so bad it's good, and then like one movie that's actually pretty decent. Like Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 is, I think it's a really fun watch. It's fun to watch during the holidays. Yeah, I would say you don't want to watch the first one and 2 back to back because then it is insanely repetitive and very boring.
Although it might be fun
Just
to
watch part 2.
It might be fun to watch like with someone else who's never seen them.
That's
and
true.
then they're like,
what's going on?
What did you show me?
This is tough.
Really?
It's hard. I'm gonna go the Dead Zone here because it is genuinely the better movie. And I do think it's not like
I'm going to the bathroom.
It's good enough, I think, that it beats out the qualities of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 that I enjoy.
Garbage Day. All right, Jeremy.
You know, I'm glad that you put Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 on the list, Hunter, because you get the 80s was a great era of so bad it's good movies. Like, and this is one of the most memorable ones. Ricky, the brother that goes crazy and starts killing people on Garbage Day. I mean, that's fun stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're having like a slumber party and you want to watch like the absolute crap but the ones that are fun, because a lot of the crap is boring, but this is one of the crap movies that's actually a lot of fun and you can kind of have fun with it. But I do think it loses points for just recycling the first movie for like half of its running time. That's something that unfortunately people did in the 80s. Like The Hills Have Eyes 2 does that. Wes Craven just basically reused half of the movie as the first Hills Have Eyes, and then just shot like a few new scenes with the killers from that movie. So yeah, that's just an unfortunate thing that they did to just kind of get movies into the theater and fulfill like contractual obligations and stuff rather than actually trying to make a movie. So I for that I can't give it as much credit. And personally, I love The Dead Zone. This is the only Stephen King adaptation directed by David Cronenberg, who is one of the great directors of the horror in the 80s. I think that he's very true to the book. It's very faithful to the book, but he does bring, especially during the part of the movie where it's about a serial killer and Johnny Smith, played by Christopher Walken, is using his gifts to catch the killer. That's so Cronenberg. It gets into like some body horror stuff. And just the way that he films all of the times that Johnny Smith touches somebody and sees a vision of what's going to happen. And it's so beautifully done, great editing, and just shows the quality of Cronenberg as a filmmaker. And I just think, for people that think Christopher Walken is just like the joke guy that talks weird and, said more cowbell, you go back to some of these earlier films like The Deer Hunter and The Dead Zone, and he's a great actor. He's great in The Dead Zone. You just feel so much for this guy. He's not a weird, creepy character like, Christopher Walken tends to play. He's actually somebody you really care about. And it's not as good as the book, but it's a good adaptation and from a great director at that time. So definitely The Dead Zone for me.
Yeah, I was pretty sure The Dead Zone was winning. I would have gone to Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 just because I've never seen The Dead Zone. So
you gotta watch it, Hunter. So good. You gotta watch it. So
but I have so much fun with the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies. I think they're so campy. I love movies that are like B-level horror movies. Like Bloody Birthday is amazing. Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 is fun. Like so many of these 80s like B-level horror movies, you can pop on. They're like, an hour and a half, and you just laugh and have fun at how bad the acting is, or, just really see the greatness of horror is like there are great masterpieces, and then there are schlocky ones that can also be fun, and you can just put those on whenever you want.
Absolutely. And that's Hunter. Sorry for giving you so much guff. But The Dead Zone.
No.
It's a fun movie.
Moving on to Christine. Speaking of
Stephen King
versus Society.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Interesting matchup.
That's very interesting.
Really cool, actually. Who we starting?
I believe we're on Carrie.
Yeah. Oh, this is tough. These are both movies I only saw recently, like within the past, I would say, year or two. Or a year, because I think we watched Christine for this ranking, actually, like
we watched it for
months and months ago.
We watched it for Movie Battleground.
Oh, okay. We watched it for Movie Battleground. Okay. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do here. I really like both of these, like an equal amount.
Yeah.
Because you got to think about the movie and not necessarily the book. And stuff like that.
So Christine was the first Stephen King book I read. So I have a soft spot
John
for
Carpenter.
It. And it's a John Carpenter. I think it's very well done. Society is so awesome though too. Like it is really a fantastic. Like I just love the body horror and like just where it goes at the end. It's incredible. Gosh. I think
want us to skip. Okay.
No, I think I'm gonna. I need to make a decision. I think I'm gonna go Christine here, just ever so slightly. It's a little bit more of a straightforward movie. I just love seeing the book come to life. And John Carpenter is just a fantastic director, but definitely won't be mad if Society moves on instead.
All right, Jeremy?
Yeah, this is another case where I had never seen Society. It's a movie I'd heard of, and I just watched it this week for the first time. And I just got to say, the last 20 minutes of Society beats anything in Christine. The last 20 minutes of that movie is mind-blowing greatness from the makeup effects artist Screaming Mad George, who actually came over to the States from Japan and left their mark in films in the 80s and 90s, kind of picking up where Rick Baker and other people had started. And they just basically said, just go nuts, George. Just go do whatever the hell you want to do in this last 20 minutes. And yeah, it's awesome. Unfortunately, I think the movie's a little bit of a drag getting up to that point. It takes a long time. Kind of basically, it's about this guy who's part of a wealthy family, and he knows that something's weird with his family and the other rich people in town. And it's just a lot of this kind of boring main character trying to figure out what's going on. And a lot of the other actors, particularly like the girl who's like his ex-girlfriend, are just not very good actors. And you're just kind of like waiting and waiting to get to it. It takes about an hour and 20 minutes. You know something crazy is coming, but you're just kind of waiting for it. So because of that, Christine is just an overall better made movie. It's John Carpenter, great actors in that movie, Keith Gordon, John Stockwell. And the original story of Christine is just a really solid story. And Christine, just the way that Carpenter made that car actual character that speaks through the 50 songs on the radio and becomes a character that, even though it's like killing people and doing bad things, you almost kind of root for the car. It's like becomes a character that you almost feel an attachment to. And that's just pure John Carpenter doing that with just great filmmaking without, CG or anything, just great practical filmmaking of the day. So although the last 20 minutes of Society are one of the greatest things I've seen in a long time, just as an overall film, quality of acting and story, I got to go with Christine.
Yeah, I agree. Christine is amazing. I watched it for the first time a few months back. No, actually, it was about a year and a half ago, because I watched it after I watched Halloween Ends, and I was like, oh, I want to see the similarities. And there are a lot, folks. There are a lot of similarities between Halloween Ends and Christine. And I love this movie.
So there you go.
Yep. I love the transformation of Arnie from this kind of nerdy good kid to this kind of funny loser badass that he tries to be. I think it's really entertaining. And by the end, Arnie is really scary because of the fact that he's under the control of Christine. The last 20 minutes of Society are fucking insane. But I do agree with Jeremy. It takes a while to get there. With Christine, all the way through the movie, you have this overlooming presence of the car that really keeps the movie flowing from one point to the other.
This is an interesting matchup. I could see actually going either way, because Christine is a classic, and Society, I think, is maybe a little bit of an underseen movie, unless you're like die-hard horror, maybe. I'm glad that I saw it. Like, I really like the it's kind of like a class distinction movie, like kind of like an Eat the Rich kind of movie. Like you could watch Society and Triangle of Sadness together, maybe. The last 20 minutes is freaking wild, and I like how they show it, even if it grossed me the hell out. And I was like, oh, what the hell? What the hell? So I turned into Tim Robinson at one point. I was like, what the hell? And then with Christine Hunter, I got to say, if you love the movie, the book is incredible.
Yeah, the book is better. Yeah.
The book is like one of my favorite books. I remember reading it for the first time. I was like, holy shit. It's one of the best things I've ever read. And the movie, I don't want to say the movie does a disservice to the book. I just think the movie doesn't really capture the book from like what I was thinking, but I still really liked the movie. I really like what John Carpenter did with like the car effects, like filming like in reverse, or you're like reversing the shot. to have the car like pop the dents back out and stuff. So just really cool stuff with the car. And it's still scary, and I like how they did the transformation and a lot of the like 80s bullies and stuff like that like really come through.
Stephen King movie, them 80s bullies, man.
Yeah.
Right?
Who are actually 50s bullies. They're like greasers.
True.
That's-
Yeah.
Always.
They really are.
Always in Stephen King.
Yeah, yep, definitely. And then so I'll give that slightly to Christine because I do agree that I think I like the mystery aspect of society about like what's really happening. But I think like as a full movie, Christine is slightly better. But they're both very good. So yeah. Carrie?
I
You
went
started?
first.
All right. Sometimes I
You
I
also,
skip you.
yeah.
I'm just trying
so
to make
it's
sure I
probably
don't.
better to ask.
Christine is moving on. Next matchup is Aliens, the great James Cameron Aliens versus Night of the Comet. And who's starting this one?
Jeremy.
Jeremy.
Yeah, I think it's
Jeremy.
me. This is another one I had never seen, Night of the Comet. I just watched it for the first time. And I had a really weird like reaction watching it. It just like put me right back in being a kid in the 80s. Like just the way that it's filmed, the music, the way that it involves like a local radio station. So they're playing like 80s pop music through the whole movie. It was just like an out of body experience. Like, my God, I just remember what it was like to be alive in that time. And because I grew up in Southern California, spent a lot of time in LA, and the movie takes place in LA. So it was just like, it just put me right back there. And it's a wonderful movie. I'd marry Catherine Stewart is so wonderful in the lead role. She was in a few like great cult movies from that time. She's in like The Last Starfighter and Weekend at Bernie's and stuff. Just a really fun actress from that time. The actress that plays her sister is great. It's not like the most horror forward. It's like there's zombies in it, but it's really just kind of more of like a hangout movie where it's the end of the world and there's only a few survivors left and there's some zombies, but they're just like teenagers are going to hang out and just like have quirky dialogue and listen to cool music. And it's just a really cool vibe of a movie. But if you put it next to something like Aliens, which is just revolutionized everything in the 80s. Like I saw Aliens probably too young an age, and that movie had such a huge impact. The idea that James Cameron, would take over this franchise from Ridley Scott and bring like his Terminator, like sci-fi action sensibilities to it is so great. And he just really, Cameron, having done Sarah Connor in the Terminator, really wanted to have badass female lead characters. And there's nobody like Ellen Ripley in this movie. Sigourney just gives a performance for the ages. She got a she got a lead actress nomination, which is so rare for a movie like this. Genre film. The Oscars are really snotty about movies like this, so the fact that she was nominated just really talks to how great she is. And a lot of people say they prefer Alien because it's like more of a classic horror kind of movie, and Aliens is more of an action movie. But I actually think, though it is an action movie, it is really scary. Like the scene where Newt and Ripley are trapped with the facehuggers, like, is one of the most like suspenseful, terrifying sequences ever in like a sci-fi horror film. And yeah, just them going into the den of her going into the den with the mother and all the eggs and stuff, like that's pretty terrifying stuff. And though, yeah, there's a lot of high acting action, but it is a horror movie, and it's one of the greats. And Bill Paxton and Michael Biehn, it's a classic. So definitely watch Night of the Comet. It's a really cool movie. It's something a little different, but I have to go with Aliens.
So I haven't seen Night of the Comet. I love Aliens. I think it's a perfect blend of horror and action. You get really, really terrifying moments in between, but the action is incredible because you're in kind of a smaller space than usual, so you don't have a lot of time to like choreograph like a big action set piece. So it's really closed in quarters, which is really cool. Ellen Ripley is one of the best like final girls because she's so badass as she goes up against the alien queen. So it's like a mother and mother dynamic because she takes Newt as a daughter on the ship. So it's like kind of the motherly instincts, two mothers going at it. I really freaking love Aliens, so I'm going Aliens.
It's actually really interesting, the debate between Alien versus Aliens, and you got people who are hardcore in like one or the other camp. I'm a little of both. I normally say I prefer Alien to Aliens, but it's also because I've seen Alien a lot more than the sequel, and I really like Jonesy the cat. So it's like Ellen and Newt or Ellen and Jonesy, and I really like both. I like the Jonesy couple a lot, but like. I really like the mom daughter aspect with her and Newt a lot, so much so that I really dislike at least the beginning of Alien 3, if not the whole movie. But I really like that relationship. I like the end of the movie. So yeah, I am gonna go Aliens. Just so you're not wondering this whole time. I do like the end of the movie with the mech suit and the fighting the big alien and get away from her, you bitch.
Get away from her, you bitch.
Which is awesome that they kind of seem like they reused in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. And then yeah. So and then I also really like the arc of Ripley in Aliens, where she realizes that androids aren't really all that bad. Maybe they might be good. So that is another one that actually rewatching, because I know they have that a little bit in the first Alien, but I think in Aliens they do it really well. So I could end up liking. Plus, we have Bill Paxton, Game Over, man. So a lot of really great stuff in Aliens. But Night of the Comet, I also want to defend as well a lot. Not from anyone here, but just in general, because I hadn't really heard much about it before. But then when I was like looking into watching more like Christmas horror, I decided to watch Night of the Comet because it's a Christmas movie. And I really like it. I like how it is like a end of the world type of movie, where there's not a lot of actors. I love the mall scene that they have, which is kind of shopping with 80s music playing. And that's a really cool. I like the two women together, the best friends.
Sisters, yeah.
Oh, I apologize, forgot. But the one thing that I really have to give credit to Night of the Comet is it gave us our favorite television show of all time, because the sister is what apparently Joss Whedon based Buffy the Vampire Slayer off of.
Yeah. I could totally see that. Yeah. She is like a teeny bopper kind of cheerleader character who gets badass. So yeah, it totally makes sense. So when I heard that, I was like, okay, we have to watch Night of the Comet now. I really, really enjoyed it. I like how it ends. I like the mall scene. I think is really, really cool. And it just like takes its time, and there's a little bit of mystery to it. And like what happens to the people. It actually kind of reminded me of like Village of the Damned, which we'll get to, because it's like people wake up and then the world is just different now. So yeah, that's really cool. But yeah, I'll go with Aliens because it's the classic, of course. Carrie.
Yeah, like Jeremy and Chad said, Night of the Comet is so good. I really, really enjoyed watching it. Chad and I watched it for the first time like over the holiday season. And we were watching like a lot of movies at that time that I wasn't really feeling, and this one was just like a nice like breath of fresh air, and just
finally an okay movie.
Yeah. A really good movie, actually. I really want to revisit it again and again. Like you guys said, though, Aliens is Aliens. And I am a person who prefers the Alien, but Aliens is still incredible. So that's what I'm going to go with.
All right. So we have Aliens.
Sweet for Aliens.
Moving on. Yeah, I mean, it's one that could win the entire thing, so we'll see. All right. We have Maniac Cop, the Trauma movie, versus Beetlejuice.
Oh, man.
It's very easy for Maniac Cop to win this whole thing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I watched like 30 minutes of Maniac Cop, and I was like, I don't know if this is my favorite cheesy horror movie, but I absolutely love Beetlejuice. This was one of the first horror type movies I watched as a kid that really got me into the genre. I think it's really weird. It's really, crazy and like, funny. It's got so many great iconic moments. I'm super excited for the sequel, so I'm going with Beetlejuice.
This is an interesting matchup because obviously, Maniac Cop is the underdog in this situation because Beetlejuice is a classic, of course, a big Tim Burton movie that I love. So yeah, of course I'm going to go Beetlejuice, but I am going to defend Maniac Cop a little bit because I did actually watch this one and I really liked it. I thought it was good. I've never watched a lot of like trauma films. I was surprised to see that this was one, but it has like somewhat, not fully, but somewhat like Sam Raimi vibes. I think he might have like produced it or something because Bruce Campbell's in it, and he's basically like the main guy. And it's really interesting too because you get a lot of sequences of like police brutality, but it's like it builds up to like this thing where this like woman is like being chased by a gang and she runs to a cop. It's like the cop's gonna save her and the cop kills her, and then it's like, holy shit, okay. And it's Maniac Cop, right? And then so you have a lot of these scenes where this cop is killing people, and then so there's a mystery element to like who that is. And then it cuts to at some point when they're trying to figure that out, and you have I forget, Jeremy probably knows, but it's the guy from Halloween
Atkins.
3,
Tom Atkins. Yeah.
So that was really cool to see him as well. And then it shows Bruce Campbell and his wife, and they're having problems. He doesn't seem like he's the best guy, and then it turns out that he's cheating on her with a cop.
Given the
Undercover.
whole
I'm giving some of it, but I watched the movie, so I'm trying. There's a point why I'm talking about that. So he's cheating on the wife. I mean, it's sort of in the beginning, that part. So he's talking. You find out that he's cheating, but it's with one of his like cop partners. And the cool thing is, you expect like Bruce Campbell to just like be that Ash, like Evil Dead hero. He's kind of like sort of an unlikable character in the movie, but you still like he's being kind of framed as potentially the Maniac Cop. And then even though as the audience, he's not, he doesn't really turn into like the big hero that much. It's actually his partner, the woman who is who's saving his butt and stuff. So I really like that, and I like what it does with like the I don't know, it's like sort of like commentary on like police brutality, but then the villain is a little defensible because something happened to him, although then he's not. So it's a really interesting movie. I actually don't really think it's all that campy. I think it's kind of more serious than people might think at first. And so yeah, I kind of dug it actually. But Beetlejuice is a classic, of course. It's Tim Burton. It's coming back for a sequel, and I'm so excited because I really love the first one. I like Michael Keaton. I like the edginess of the humor. I like the dance scene of the Deo, and I like Catherine O'Hara is just insane in like everything. I love her so much, and she's crazy in this. And Winona Ryder's also iconic in it, and just like all of the scares are really fun. Like when he turns into the snake is really creepy. And then, it's the set pieces and production design's incredible. Music, it's just a banger of a movie. I'm going Beetlejuice. Carrie.
I was like halfway through a Maniac Cop. I didn't get to finish it. But even if I had finished it, it does not hold a candle to Beetlejuice, which is just such a classic. It's phenomenal. The special effects are amazing. There's so many iconic scenes, and it's so fun, and also like not pretty scary. I mean, it's not really scary as an adult, but as a kid, it's pretty scary.
Mm-hmm.
So going Beetlejuice.
And I do want to say everybody should watch Maniac Cop. I just watched it for the first time, and it's actually the other movie I was referencing that was written by Larry Cohen, who did The Stuff and was just a B-movie master in this time, just cranking movies out. It was directed by William Lustig, who did the movie Maniac, which I know Hunter wasn't having a good time watching that one. And that movie's just really sleazy and off-putting. Maniac Cop, there are kind of some that sleazy, like street kind of elements to it, but it's never like it never is unpleasant. It's a very fun movie to watch. Tom Atkins is great in it. Bruce Campbell, like everything you said about him, he plays kind of an anti-hero, but he's really good in the movie. Richard Roundtree, who actually played Shaft in the 70s as like the police commissioner, and he's really good. The actress who's like the female cop is not very good, but I do like what they were trying to do with her, having kind of like who you think is just like this undercover cop who's cheating around, end up kind of being the hero at the end, was a cool idea. The actor that plays the maniac cop, his name is Robert Zadar, and he had like this kind of like facial deformity where his face is really large, and he was in a lot of B movies in the 80s, playing like these hulking, scary characters. But yeah, they use him well in Maniac Cop. He's very scary. I just think the movie kind of loses it a little bit because it goes into kind of the supernatural thing. Whereas if he had just been like a slasher cop, I think the movie would have been better than kind of go, because it gets pretty outlandish and wild. And just one little thing that I thought was really funny in the movie is it's clearly takes place in New York, and they shot a lot in New York. But then during the big car chase at the end of the movie, they're suddenly filming in LA. It's really funny. It's like they just teleported to Culver City. What the hell happened? If you know, like grew up in LA like I did, it was really funny. But yeah, fun movie, but you got to go Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice is a classic. I saw it in the drive-in when I was like 9, and it changed my life. And you have to put in context, this was Tim Burton's second movie after Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and like it's all there. Like his whole career is in Beetlejuice, like his visual style, his humor, having Michael Keaton, who he would work with a lot more. It's so crazy that he came out of the gate with that. And it's, all practical, all these visual crazy things that he did. It's all practical effects. And I'm very happy to hear that the new Beetlejuice sequel that they're finally doing is going to be practical effects as well. So, hopefully we'll get some of that classic Tim Burton magic back. I'm hoping. You never know, but it's classic. And Michael Keaton is in like 16 minutes of that movie and makes such a huge impact with the little amount of screen time that he has. Kind of like Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. Like you feel like he's in the whole movie because he's so great, but they're able to focus on Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis and a lot of the other stuff, Winona Ryder, and kind of the emotional core of the movie. And Michael Keaton can come in and be crazy and have fun, but you're still kind of invested in the story. So yeah, it's absolute classic. Beetlejuice.
We have said the word Beetlejuice way more than 3 times.
Oh,
he should be
no.
appearing
Where is
right
he?
now.
Where is he?
They're started, so we'll move on after Beetlejuice moves on to The Lost Boys versus Child's Play.
Oh, this is tough.
All right, I'm Chucky.
Hoping it would be Lost Boys versus Near Dark. That would have been fun, but this
That
is
Who are we starting with?
Starting with me. This is interesting because I like both movies a lot. And if you asked me before I rewatched The Lost Boys again, I would have just went with Child's Play because I'm not a huge Kiefer Sutherland fan. He one time he said something bad about Buffy and it made me mad, and so I've had a grudge. But it's very interesting because I think both movies are incredible for different reasons. I like Brad Dourif a lot. I like what he's able to do with Chucky. I think the movie's just really cool. But The Lost Boys is also really incredible. So I'm actually on the fence. That's why I'm like gearing up for nothing, because I'm like, what am I going to choose? I'm going to go The Lost Boys. I think The Lost Boys, like what it did for like kind of like cool vampires, like, is really, really cool. So actually, I feel like it probably had a lot of influence on Buffy as well. I like how it's like the pack of vampires and they're really cool, but they're doing like dangerous stuff. And so the one brother like turns into a vampire and you get to kind of follow him on his journey. But then you have like the two Corys getting together, which is really cool to see. And Corey Feldman sounds really, really like weird in the movie.
He sounds like an adult.
Yeah. But I like them teaming up to like kind of like save his brother or whatever. I think that's what happens. I'm trying to remember, but yeah, I like the 80s vibe of it, and I like all the characters in it. And I actually like Kiefer Sutherland in it. I think he's a really cool like leading vampire guy. And And I like the. Sorry, there's a distraction outside. I don't know what the hell that was. And
It's
then
Beetlejuice. He's there.
Oh, he arrived.
The handrail looks different. Yeah. So I also really like the twist in the movie. So. Oh, they're doing.
Michael Keaton appears.
Someone's doing like
Our neighbor who we can see through our sliding glass door, I think he's welding.
yeah,
something.
welding. That's it.
Oh, great.
Or he's got like one of those like saws. Anyways,
There's like big sparks coming out of it. Like it looks like he's
Man.
about to set off a fire.
Hopefully, there's not a slasher movie going on over there.
oh shit.
Wow.
It's like the end of Fargo.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Lost Boys. I like the twist at the end as well, and just the whole vibe of it, and all the vampire stuff is really well done. Child's Play. Oh, he's distracting you out there. Child's Play is really cool though. I love that first movie. Chucky's an icon, right? But I'll go Lost Boys. Carrie.
Yeah, this is tough because I do really like both of these movies. Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna go Lost Boys as well. As great as Child's Play is, Lost Boys. I don't know. It's something about that movie. It like you start watching it and you just feel like you're in that time and place. Like the atmosphere is so there. I think the characters are just like these very classic 80s characters, and it just like, I don't know, it follows these great beats. It's exciting. All of the scenes with the vampires are just fantastic. And Child's Play it's really fun. There's so many movies though, and I feel like The Lost Boys actually it's beneficial to it that it's kind of this standalone movie that didn't with time, kind of get silly or anything like that.
There's a sequel, but
yeah,
Oh, God,
but no,
yeah.
Is there?
The tribe, something like that.
yeah,
God.
but it's easy to forget.
Yeah.
Corey Feldman came back, but
Oh my God! Really? Why?
yeah, I don't know.
All right, Jeremy.
Yeah, these are both big movies in the 80s. Yeah, definitely watched both a lot as a kid. I'm actually not the biggest Lost Boys fan. I think it's a fun movie. It's very 80s. It always kind of felt more like a teen, angst movie more than like a vampire movie. I feel like it's like vampire movie light. And it's like they're flying around and being crazy. It almost like goes into a little bit of a Twilight thing for me, where they're like vampires that are flying around and being acrobatic and rather than actually being scary and doing the vampire like badass stuff that I like to see. Whereas Child's Play, I think, is still great. I think that Brad Dourif and the effects of the doll are incredible. The first movie really holds up. Chris Sarandon is the cop. It's the same director as Fright Night, so Chris Sarandon came back, and I just think that movie kicks ass. I think the whole franchise is pretty fun, but that first movie just really works for me. And it's just, maybe it's personal taste, but I like my Brad Dourif Chucky over my, teeny bopper vampires. So, although the one thing I will say about Lost Boys, it's one of the first times I remember like comic book nerds being the heroes in movies. That wasn't like as much of like comic book nerds are kind of looked down on back then. So I appreciate that about it. But no, I'm going to go with Child's Play on this one.
All right, so a couple things. Chad, you said that The Lost Boys gives you, or that Buffy took inspiration from The Lost Boys, it feels like. They actually did.
Oh.
Because according to Joss Whedon, the character Spike is a little bit Billy Idol and a little Kiefer Sutherland from
That's
The Lost
right.
Boys.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's very clear. It's very clear that Spike is based on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I love. The music in The Lost Boys is great. Cry Little Sister, when that hits, is awesome. Child's Play is really, really good, but I think when you think of Chucky, you think of the sequels, and that's the original movie doesn't focus a lot on Chucky as a doll. It focuses more on Andy and his mother, which is, it's fine. It's a really solid movie, but man, every time I watch The Lost Boys, I just get lost in the
boys.
boys, yeah, in the in the kind of fun
Funky
element
voice.
of it, the fun element of it, the Kiefer Sutherland's character in the end is really terrifying when he's like in the house surrounded by the red taxidermy figures. I think it's just super fun. A lot of elements that would come back, for the vampire genre. So overall, I'm gonna go with the Lost Boys.
All right.
Fair.
Lost Boys moving on. And moving
Beetlejuice versus the
on
Lost
to
Boys.
Poltergeist. Predator, another P word movie, versus Jason Lives,
Ooh,
Part 6.
Part 6.
Friday the 13th, Part 6. Jason Lives. All right. Start with Carrie.
Carrie.
Okay.
I know what you're going to pick. You know what you're going to pick here.
Okay, yeah, I know I'm gonna pick here. A Predator, honestly, not a fan. I don't know why. I'm not really a fan. Friday the 13th, Part 6, and not my favorite part, but pretty good part. And what am I gonna rewatch more? It's gonna be the Friday the 13th movies. They're kind of fun. I know it's a way worse movie than Predator. But whatever.
They're both cheesy in their own way, so you're not far off.
I'm gonna go Friday the 13th here.
Jeremy?
I'm not the biggest fan of the Friday the 13th. Like I said, slashers aren't really my favorite genre. Like I'm trying to catch up on more of them, but it's not something that I watch as much. But I always thought Part 6 kicked ass. Like that movie is so fun. The fact that, okay, we're just going to make Jason a full-on zombie now, and like most of the characters in that movie feel like they're from a sitcom. Like they're going for like one-liners and gags and fun rather than like really bad actors who are trying to be earnest and delivering wooden dialogue. It's like, no, we're gonna get like actual like actors that could be in like TV comedy and have them be fun and wisecracking and stuff. And it is when he's in the camp at the end though, and he's like actually a threat to the kids though, it is pretty scary though. So even I kind of consider it more of the more comedic Jason. It does at least have a little bit of a scare factor at the end. So yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites in that series. But I love Predator. I mean, that was a big movie for me as a kid in the 80s. Arnold, he was a god to us. And this is like one of the most Arnold of all Arnolds, like get to the chopper. And just the fact that, he's basically being Rambo. It's like you're seeing Schwarzenegger as Rambo in the jungle taking on the Predator. It's iconic. And I love all the bodybuilder guys, Carl Weathers and Jesse Ventura, and the fact that like behind the scenes they were working out in the gym. They're trying to outwork out each other, and who could be the buff? We got to be as buff as Arnold. Oh, I worked out more than you, Arnold. It's so funny.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, when you hear those stories. And I love the Shane Black dialogue in the movie. This is John McTiernan, the movie that he made right before he did Die Hard. And I just, there's a cheese factor to it, but I think it's really well made. I think that the Predator effect, which it took a long time for them to get it right. It was like right at the end of the shoot when they finally were able to get that on screen. And it's iconic. I just think he's pretty terrifying. He's kind of gross, but he's awesome. I love the Predator character. And I think there's some fun in that franchise that went on because that's such an iconic design. And just the fact, the night vision and stuff that he's able to do as this alien coming to just hunt people. It's such a fun movie. And I love that the beginning of it is just like a Commando Rambo like jungle action movie. And then all of a sudden the Predator shows up and it like shifts genres in the middle of the movie. I just think that's so cool. So yeah, I'm going with Predator on this one. I get it. Maybe it's not everyone's cup of tea. And I do love Jason Lives, but I got to go Predator as an 80s kid.
All right, this is tough because I really do like both movies. I think Predator is a really good mix of action and, horror, kind of like Aliens in a way. And like any movie that shows Arnold and pro wrestler Jesse Ventura just shooting down a Predator is awesome. But I really liked Jason Lives. I think the great thing about it has that kind of Scream element before Scream came out, where there are some lines of dialogue about, well, if this was a horror movie, I wouldn't get out of the car. Things like that, like little self, referential jokes in there really makes it feel like real life in a way, which I appreciate. It doesn't go over the top. I think the over the top acting is hilarious, and at this point, you don't want people, who are trying to take this so seriously. It's a Friday the 13th movie. You know what movie you're going in for. I love slashers. I gotta go with Jason Lives.
Yeah, so I'm kind of on the same fence as Carrie and Jeremy. How? Because I also am not a big Predator fan, but I also don't love the Friday the 13th franchise, but I think Jason Lives is a high point, because I try to imagine what the Friday the 13th just series would look like if they were all kind of like Jason Lives.
Yeah.
And the first one wasn't just like, hey, we're just trying to copy Halloween here and make some money. And then, they did still make a name for themselves and make one of the most iconic characters. But Jason Lives starts with a Bond reference, and it's just so weird.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good.
I'm like, why the hell wouldn't they have jokes throughout the entire franchise? This would have been so much more fun if it had that. So I am going to go Jason Lives, but Predator is a very interesting one because I understand the love for it. I mean, I do think the macho-ness is very fun with the arms pumping and stuff like that. And then the Predator shows up, and it's one of those where I'll watch it, I won't get that much out of it, and then I'll watch a review, and then I'll go, how did you get all of that out of that movie that much? I want to rewatch it again, and I think I might get more out of it the next time. But I will say, for it being a horror movie, I really like the score of it. I think it makes it a really
Jerry Goldsmith again. Yeah.
Really good horror score. So, it's an unconventional horror movie, which is really cool. I want to give it a rewatch, so I'm going to go Jason Lives, and that's going to move on.
The upset, in my opinion.
Kind of.
A little bit.
Many people on would probably comment, and
Dylan, you son of a bitch.
Moving on to Evil Dead 2 versus Near Dark.
That's a heartbreaker.
That's the last.
And then I think this is the last one.
Okay.
Yep, this side, and then we can kind of do a sort of a speed round, but you can say, but we'll get to it. Let's do the final matchup. We're starting with Hunter, right, at the top, or Jeremy? Who started last time? Like you?
I feel like it might be back to me.
So Jeremy.
So Jeremy.
Yeah, Jeremy.
Yeah, this is heartbreaking because I love Near Dark. I think it's such an underrated movie. I discovered it probably back in the 90s. I don't really remember hearing about it when it came out in the 80s. I think it's one that got more traction on VHS. And the movie's just it's directed by Catherine Bigelow, and it's came out the same year as Lost Boys, and it's also a vampire movie. It's more about this traveling band of white trash vampires that go in a trailer, and they black it out during the day, and then they attack people at night. And it's got it was produced by James Cameron, I think, when he was actually with Catherine Bigelow. So it's got a lot of the James Cameron actors: Bill Paxton, Lance Henriksen, the actress that was in Aliens. It's a really cool movie. I personally much prefer it to Lost Boys. I think they're badass vampires, and there's a scene where Bill Paxton just goes nuts in a bar and just rips people apart. That's the kind of vampire stuff I like. But there is a teen angst thing too, because Adrian Pasdar is our main character, and he falls in love with the daughter of the vampire troupe, played by an actress, Jenny blanking on her name, Jenny Wright, who was only in a few movies, but if you go back and watch all the movies she did in like the late 80s, early 90s, she was a really great young actress who just kind of like quit acting, but she had like a really cool vibe, like and a lot of people respected her like of the young actors at the time. So really cool movie, and that's why I'm heartbroken that it got put up against Evil Dead 2, because Evil Dead 2 is just one of the all-time classic movies. Sam Raimi coming off of the first Evil Dead and kind of go like retelling the story a little bit, but now going on full on like comedy, slapstick, splatstick horror, and really bringing forth Bruce Campbell as Ash to be like this over the top, wisecracking, wild character who's going to end up with a chainsaw arm. It's just such a fun movie. It's so brilliantly done, and it just basically created a whole genre going forward of the Peter Jackson, all these other filmmakers trying to do like super violent, gory, like funny slapstick, comedy horror.
Idle Hands, for example.
Idle Hands, so many movies that have, taken their lead from what Sam Raimi was doing. And just the way, putting like he did in the first movie, putting the camera on a board and like zooming around the cabin, like point of view of like the demon as it's running around. Just so many good, the scene where everything in the cabin comes to life, like all the things, and Bruce
so
Campbell's
good.
like everything's laughing at him, all the stuff with his hand trying to kill him. It's just incredible stuff. So yeah, definitely watch Near Dark. So if you want to see another 1987 vampire movie, I love that movie. But no, Evil Dead is like this is at the one of the top of this whole list here.
Yeah, I've never seen Near Dark, and if I had, I probably would still choose Evil Dead 2. I really, really love this movie. This was a movie that I watched probably younger than I should have watched it, thanks to my cousin who was like, "Hey, come here, check out this weird horror movie," and I fell in love with it. Perfect mix of horror and comedy. Bruce Campbell is an absolute icon. There are so many great scenes, great lines. Like, what more can be said about Evil Dead 2? It's really, really iconic. So, Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, it's Near Dark is one of those movies that I've always wanted to get to. It's one of the few that I haven't seen from this list, but it's because every time I've heard something great about it and tried to find it, it seemed like it wasn't available anywhere.
Yeah, it's really hard to find. It's a bummer.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about it, though, is I think it might be on the Criterion channel right now. So I think I might try to just subscribe to that service so I can watch it. But yeah, I really want to get to it because I've heard, just like Jeremy said, I heard like nothing but good things about it every time someone's brought it up. But it's just like an underseen movie, I think. But Evil Dead 2 is one of my favorites of all time, not just horror, but just movies. When the 2013 Evil Dead movie,
you're wearing the shirt.
Then the 2013 movie was coming out. I had never seen an Evil Dead movie, and I was like, I actually really wasn't that into horror at the time. I was like, you know what? Let me see what I'm getting myself into. And I watched the Sam Raimi ones, and I really liked them.
And then 2013, and you were like, yeah, no.
Well, I didn't. I don't hate the remake. I think the remake.
I love it.
Is interesting. But and I like the way that they did it with like practical effects and stuff like that. But like there's some stuff that I just can't get behind. I don't like the beginning, and I don't like the dog scene. There's just a couple things that hold it back for me. But I think Evil Dead 2 is brilliant. It's just genius, like directing. It's Sam Raimi, like, the original Evil Dead is amazing, but then it's like, now they have a bigger budget. Now Raimi has a little bit more experience, and he's like, I'm going to innovate and just go wild and put Bruce Campbell in harm's way multiple times. With him all the time. Push him to his limits, which you can say what you want about, if that's ethical or not, but it's fun and kind of funny in a way. I think it's just incredibly done. I love the blend of the horror and the comedy. I think it's perfect. It's a very scary movie. A lot of people might kind of say, well, that's just a comedy, but it's very scary. Like there's a lot of especially when you don't expect someone to be a deadite and they just pop up and stuff, and unexpectedly even Ash turns into a deadite a few times. I do love the comedy, like when you're expecting the demon camera to follow the protagonist, and that's the scary thing. But then at one point, the demon camera loses the protagonist and goes, "What?
Yeah, yeah.
Where'd he go?" Kind of a deal. So
That's
there's a
great.
lot of really fun stuff that happens in there. Jeremy hit on a lot of the really great big parts, like the hand and the wall and the flipping them off and stuff like that, which is just wild and crazy. And anything he can do with that camera, he does in that movie. And I also like the story with Annie Nobe and all that stuff too. And I like how it builds to this end part with the big like face that comes into the house, and it just looks really crazy and really cool. And then, ends with him going into the past. It's one of the all-timers. And I probably would make this one go all the way if we're up to me, but there's a lot of great movies that we have on this list. So it's going to be interesting to see what matchups go on. But Carrie.
Yeah, I haven't seen Near Dark. It's interesting. I was just thinking about this the other day because Dylan Randazzo on his Facebook page has been like a poll of
Bigelow,
directors, and I didn't realize that Catherine Bigelow had directed Dark, like a horror movie. So that's really cool, and I really want to see it. But yeah, Evil Dead 2, yeah, one of my favorites. Have to go with it.
It's the best, dude. Moving on.
Love the fact that you, me, and Chad are both wearing not T-shirts from the 80s, but T-shirts of movies that are in this list.
Yeah. Oh, I specifically chose my shirt.
I did that on purpose as well. Hunter just did it.
I didn't. Complete accident.
All right. So now we're going to move on to the first side again, and we're going to try to make this one go a little bit faster. But, if you want to briefly explain why you're picking one over the other, that's perfectly fine. So we'll start back up with Hunter with this matchup, which is Reanimator versus The Stepfather. Hunter.
Well, again, I've never seen Stepfather, so I got to go with Reanimator. Pretty simple.
All right. I've seen half of Stepfather and all of Reanimator. Even though I wasn't super high in Reanimator, I'll still go Reanimator. I think it is iconic in a way. So, and The Stepfather is really good, but so far I haven't seen the rest of it. But I don't know if it's as good as Reanimator. Carrie.
Reanimator.
Look at the shirt.
Yeah, and Reanimator for me, like I said, Terry O'Quinn is wonderful in The Stepfather, but Jeffrey Combs is equally wonderful in Reanimator, and it's a better movie overall, more creative. So yeah.
Perfect. All right. So the next matchup is Fright Night versus Pet Sematary. For me, I like both of these movies a lot. I am going to give the edge to Fright Night because I think Fright Night is I think the book for Pet Sematary is so much better that I think the Pet Sematary movie is on the borderline if it's even like a good movie or not. I think it's like right there on the border. But Fright Night, I think, is a really good movie that actually holds up and is actually really scary with the magnetism of the main vampire, Chris Sarandon. Carrie.
Pet Sematary.
Jeremy.
I'm actually going to go with Fright Night. I think the performances of Chris Sarandon and Roddy McDowall are so great, and some of the acting in Pet Sematary is a little creaky, and like I love the movie. It doesn't quite do justice to the book fully, whereas Fright Night, I think they hit what they were going for with that movie. So just very, very barely going to go Fright Night.
Perfect. Hunter.
This is tough, but yeah, I'm going Fright Night as well. I had so much fun watching Fright Night.
All right, and we're going to go to the next matchup, which is Gremlins versus The Howling. Carrie.
Gremlins.
Jeremy.
Gremlins.
Hunter.
Gremlins.
Yeah.
Do you really like The Howling? I do like The Howling.
Moving on. I didn't hate The Howling. I just don't love it. A Nightmare on Elm Street versus Killer Clowns. Hear me.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Nightmare. Killer Clowns isn't the best for me.
Hunter.
I love Killer Clowns, but come on, Freddy all day.
Yeah, Freddy. Carrie.
Nightmare.
All right. Moving on to the other side. That was quick. All right. Poltergeist versus The Dead Zone. Hunter.
Ooh, this is tough. Yeah, Poltergeist. It's a classic.
I actually really like both of these, but yeah, I think Poltergeist is more of the classic, and there's just a lot of really great moments and scares in it, and just even like the behind the scenes with the real life horrors, like the little girl who passed away, is just like really interesting. I mean, sad but interesting and stuff. So it's like a haunted, cursed movie. So it's really cool about it as well. So yeah, Poltergeist, Carrie,
Poltergeist.
Jeremy.
Yeah, not only did the little girl die, but the teenage daughter was murdered
Got
by her
murdered.
boyfriend in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a lot of stuff with that movie. Yeah, I love both movies. They're both pretty high for me, but I mean, The Dead Zone to me is only like barely a horror movie. It's really more of like a psychological drama sort of movie, and Poltergeist is one of the iconic 80s horror movies. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Poltergeist.
That's actually a good point, Jeremy. I never thought about that like that.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next one, which is Christine versus Aliens. It's me. I'm going to go Aliens here. Carrie.
Aliens.
Ooh.
Jeremy.
Aliens is very high for me on my list. It'd be very hard to beat Aliens for me.
Yeah, Hunter.
This is tougher than it is for a lot of people. I'm still going Aliens, but man, Christine is so good.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
All right. Beetlejuice versus The Lost Boys.
Oh,
Beetlejuice.
Jeremy.
Yeah, I've kind of expressed I'm not a Lost Boys guy, and I love Beetlejuice. So Beetlejuice.
Hunter.
Beetlejuice got me into horror, so I'm going with that one.
Yeah, I recently have had a Lost Boys reawakening where I'm like, oh, I really like this movie, but it's not Beetlejuice.
It's really good.
Beetlejuice. That's a nostalgia thing for me as well, Beetlejuice. And I wasn't even born in the 80s. It's still a nostalgia movie. All right, moving on. Jason Lives versus Evil Dead 2. I think we're at
the
Jeremy.
franchise horror.
Yeah, that is probably my favorite Friday movie, but yeah, it doesn't hold a candle to Evil Dead 2. I mean, better franchise, better movie.
Yep, Hunter.
Yeah, I agree. I love Jason Lives, but come on, Evil Dead 2 is a classic.
Yep, better franchise, better movie. Evil Dead 2 is a masterpiece. I agree.
Evil Dead 2.
All right. Now we're going back to the other side.
We got some
Now-
heavy hitters, man.
Now it gets tough.
Yeah, for sure.
We're about to find out like our final four for this, which is very exciting. So let me expand this a little bit. Wait, am I doing it right?
I think the other way.
No. Oh yeah, you're right, Carrie. All right. So Hunter, Reanimator versus Fright Night.
I gotta go with Reanimator. I've watched it more. I love the practical effects. Stuart Gordon directed the hell out of this movie. So
I really need to rewatch Reanimator because I'm feeling Fright Night more. Carrie.
Reanimator.
Jeremy.
Yeah, a good thing I ranked them because I love both movies, but I did rank Reanimator a few slots harder above it. I just think it's a more innovative and really standout 80s crazy comedy horror, whereas Fright Night is a more of a traditional movie, well done, but Reanimator is a real marvel of its time.
Yeah, and I think I might also, like, once we get all the top 64 movies, I might just rewatch all of them because I really want to rewatch Reanimator just to, get the love of it because, I think it's going to be there. All right, moving on to Gremlins versus Nightmare. Going to me, this is tough, but I'm going to go Nightmare. I think it's more of a pure horror movie. And I think like that aspect of it is very strong in here. Like we've been saying, Freddy is very scary, and he wasn't as scary up until Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So this movie is incredible, one of the best of the movies, not even just horror, just in general. So I'll go Nightmare. Carrie.
Yeah, because I have to choose, and this is a horror bracket for the same reasoning. I'm going Nightmare.
Jeremy.
Yeah, I honestly think Gremlins is the better movie, and I love the movie more, but we're talking about 80s horror, and Nightmare on Elm Street is it's an iconic film. It started a franchise. It kind of like started a subgenre of like the side going into people's dreams and those kind of sequences. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Nightmare, although in my heart I do prefer Gremlins, but Nightmare is more of the horror movie. It is more of the straight, iconic franchise horror film, whereas Gremlins is kind of more in like the family creature genre a little bit.
Ain't no cute mogwais in Nightmare, so
Yeah, it's too cute. It's too cute.
It's too cute. Yeah, Nightmare for me. I think it gave us one of the best final girls of all time in Nancy Thompson.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. All right, so now we're going to the other side. Poltergeist versus Aliens, and it's who's it? Me, Carrie.
Me.
You,
Carrie.
Poltergeist.
Jeremy.
Sorry, I'm having audio issues, but I'm sorry. It was Poltergeist versus what?
Aliens.
I'm going Aliens.
I'm going Aliens as well.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's really tough.
I love both movies, but Poltergeist loses a little steam, I think, in the last third when you bring in the psychic lady and everything. I think Aliens is just a perfectly oiled machine from beginning to end.
All right, so I hear that point, Jeremy, and I don't disagree with you, but I'm going to go Poltergeist because I do think it's the stronger of the horror movies between the two. So I'm going to go Poltergeist. So that, I think, ties it up. So now we have to go Carrie. You're going to have to choose because you're the third tiebreaker. Heads or tails?
Heads.
All right, so she chose heads. So if it's heads, it's Poltergeist. If it's tails, it's Aliens. Tails has been winning so far. So let's see what happens. Hey, Siri, flip the coin. And it's still tails.
Oh, Aliens!
Aliens.
That thing is rigged.
It's always tails. You got to choose tails next time if you want your
I
thing
don't
to
think
win.
your thing works.
Okay. Do you want to do it again? Okay. Aliens moved on.
I'm not that mad about it.
All right. There's some great horror in Aliens. It's fine.
Yeah.
And now we have Beetlejuice versus Evil Dead 2, which might be hard for some people. And we're starting with Jeremy.
This is tough.
Yeah, I love both movies, but I mean, this is a horror ranking, not a Tim Burton ranking. So I'm going to go with Evil Dead 2, which I think just for what it did for horror, for comedy, like you guys made the point, it is really scary. It's really funny, but it's also really scary. I think Beetlejuice is scary if you're 6, but other than that, it's really more in the comedy fantasy genre.
Yeah. Hunter.
This is tough because I love both movies, but while Evil Dead 2 may be the better horror film, I got to go with the one that got me into horror as a kid. So I got to go with Beetlejuice.
Yeah, I mean, I got to go Evil Dead 2. Beetlejuice hits me in the nostalgia, but Evil Dead 2 is one that Beetlejuice didn't get me into horror. Evil Dead 2 totally got me into horror, made me want to watch just crazy shit like that. It's just amazing. But they're both so freaking good. I wouldn't be mad at either for winning. Carrie.
Evil Dead 2.
I thought you were going to get Beetlejuice.
All right.
No.
All right.
It might be more difficult in like a straight what's the better movie, but in a horror ranking, yeah.
All right. Now this is our final four. Reanimator.
Final four is amazing.
Aliens and Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn.
It's pretty stacked.
Yeah.
I'm happy. These are all pretty high for me. Yeah, nothing I'm really mad about. That's really
are these all in your top 10?
These are all my top 7, yeah.
Wow. Nice.
Woo!
All right.
Let's go.
So now we're going to start back up with Hunter, Reanimator, A Nightmare on Elm Street.
It's really tough, but come on. Freddy Krueger is an icon. I got to go with A Nightmare on Elm Street.
For that reason, A Nightmare is not hard for me. Nightmare totally wins. But again, I need to rewatch Reanimator. Carrie.
Nightmare.
Jeremy.
I love both movies. One knock against Reanimator is that the lead actor Bruce Abbott is pretty bad, and he takes a lot of the screen time away from like Jeffrey Combs and stuff. Whereas I think Nancy and Johnny Depp and most of the cast is pretty strong in Nightmare. So I love both movies kind of equally, but I'll give it Nightmare the edge for that.
Nice. And then go to me for Aliens versus Evil Dead 2. I'm gonna go Evil Dead 2. I could see an argument for Aliens being the better movie, but I do think it is, even though it does have horror elements to it, I think it is far more an action movie because that's more of James Cameron's bag. Even though like the Terminator is still kind of a horror movie, but it's also more of an action movie, I'd say, and a lot of his stuff is. So I'm gonna go Evil Dead 2 just because I think it's like balls to the wall, like 90 minutes of pure horror and comedy, and it's just your eyes are glued to the screen for the whole time. So Evil Dead 2 is my pick. Carrie.
Evil Dead 2.
Jeremy.
I mean, I get the argument that Aliens is an action movie, but I think it is really scary. I think that there are individual moments in that are scarier to me than anything in Evil Dead 2, and it's just a better story overall. Like I love Evil Dead 2 as a pure, just hitting you with scene after scene of craziness, but there's just such an arc to Aliens. It was the number one movie on this whole list for me. And like, unlike you, I've probably seen it 10 times more than I've seen Alien. So it's the one that, just as a kid in the 80s, like, and my brother, who wasn't a big movie watcher, it was like Star Wars and Aliens. So it was like the two movies I could always get my brother to watch with me. And it's like, it had such an influence on things like Halo and the video games world, and it's just left such an imprint. So I can totally understand why Evil Dead 2 would top a horror list, but I got to be the guy standing here plugging for Aliens. It's way up there for me.
Totally. It's great. It's so good. Hunter.
This is so tough, man. Evil Dead 2 is a great mixture of horror and comedy with some great physical acting by Bruce Campbell. But I prefer the story of Aliens way more, so I'm going Aliens.
Wow, there we are.
All right,
had to go to a tie.
Guys, so Jeremy, heads or tails?
See, I feel bad now because it's been tails every time. Am I a jerk if I say tails?
No, pick tails.
It'll probably be heads now.
Can I do it?
No, don't fair to keep doing it on the same phone.
How is that fair? It's been tails this whole time.
It's going to be heads now. It's due, and it's due.
No, it's tails again. Carrie,
my God. Do it on her phone. Do it on her phone.
Just to see.
Well, you chose tails thinking it was going to be tails. I think we just keep it.
Carrie, I don't like how you just decide that. All right. All right. Aliens win.
I feel bad, guys.
Somehow.
But I think after this, I'm going to perform an experiment with Chad's phone and see if they
There you go.
There you go.
It did just choose head. So there you go.
Okay.
Okay.
If Hunter would have did it, the next time, then it would have been heads. Right. So I feel less bad now that it chose heads when I did it.
All right.
Time. All right. So now we go to the final matchup between A Nightmare on Elm Street and Aliens. It's down to Carrie now.
Nightmare.
Jeremy?
I'm going with Aliens.
Hunter?
I gotta go with Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy Krueger is more iconic to me than Ripley.
Yeah, and I'm so glad Aliens made it to the top two because I think it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But for the horror bracket, I am gonna go A Nightmare on Elm Street. Seal that deal. Just make that win. Although it's so cool that Aliens made it to the top four because
top two.
Or the top two, but the top
two
four in general for the championship because
that's
I
fair.
could totally see Alien maybe even winning the 70s bracket. Definitely, I'm sure it's definitely going to come to the top four at least. So
I would say
we could see Alien versus Alien.
That's what I'm getting to. Like
possible,
it could be, So, but yeah, so A Nightmare on Elm Street has won our first 80s bracket. So that's just 32 of the 64 movies we got for the 80s. It is the last time that we're doing that because as time goes on, more and more movies get made, more and more iconic movies come out. The 70s is a great decade for horror, but there was like a lot less that I was seeing that I was like throw on the list. So we're only going to have 32 movies for the 70s, the 60s, and then for the 30s, 40s, and 50s, we're combining into one. just so it works out with the math, and also just like kind of less movies were coming out, so there's less to choose from. But we still have, before we get to all that, we still have the second part of the 80s bracket that we're doing to get our other 32. We're going to take the rest of the movies. We already have them. We're just going to take a little bit of time to try to watch some of the ones we haven't seen. And then when we get to a good amount where we're like, well, we've seen most of them, or maybe someone at least has seen all of them, or something like that. Like Jeremy had seen all of these, and just some of us had seen just a little few or less. And then once we get to the end of that bracket, we'll get to the top 4 of that one, and then we'll get one winner of that bracket, and then those 2 movies at the end of next bracket will face. So whatever wins the second bracket will face A Nightmare on Elm Street to find out what is the best horror movie of the 1980s. I did that one. I did that one movie battleground thing. It could end up being A Nightmare on Elm Street versus The Thing in the next one. That'll be
Very possible.
interesting.
Yeah.
If it comes down to that. Yeah, and that was great. I'm excited to get to the second part and the rest of them, and to get to that championship finally. I want to especially thank Jeremy for coming on.
Oh, thank you guys.
You're just such a really great voice in the community, and like the way you're able to give a lot of just insight, especially being like a kid of the 80s. You gave so much insight to a lot of these movies that I was just like sitting there like about to like get the lesson from Jeremy. I was like,
yeah.
Right. So tell me about how horror transitioned from this decade to this decade, and like how this movie affected movies in the future. I love talk like that, so it's like really fun to hear that. Anything else, Jeremy, you want to say anything?
No, I you can find me on Letterboxd. It's Adam1979, and I have reviews up of a lot of the movies we talked about today, and kind of give my thoughts on there. I'm also Jeremy Paul Adams on YouTube, and I have some content there. And if you are into the trivia space, you'll see me playing in a lot of matches. I've got some like title matches coming up in a couple of different leagues. So you'll see me there. And I just wanted to say I'm really excited about the 70s draft coming up, because that's such a really important decade for horror films. And I think if you did want to do 64, you'd probably have to go into the TV movie side of things, because there were a lot of great TV movies in the 70s. But if you're just going theatrical, there'll be a good 32 there, and I'm excited for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Chad and Carrie, do you guys want to plug something before we head out?
Yeah, we can real quick. Carrie, you want to plug anything?
No, you go ahead.
All right, I'll just plug. Watch my channel, Chadwick Webb. We rank stuff, do a lot of fun stuff over there. Carrie and I sometimes review things. And then check out the Dill Pickle Movie Network. I always have to plug it because Dylan Randazzo, he's been mentioned in this bracket so far. He's such a great guy, and just has so much content on his channel. He like puts out so much stuff, and like it's all good and it's all really fun. And I love doing stuff on his channel. But I do a show on there called Picture This, where we're on a mission, right, to watch all of the Best Picture nominees just like ever made. I mean, it's impossible, right? Because some of them are lost, but the ones that aren't lost, we're trying to watch those. And we're very excited. And this month we're doing 2023 movies. So I'm very excited. I think that episode's probably going to be like 4 hours long, because I think 2023 was one of the greatest years for like movies being nominated for Best Picture. There's so many good ones in there. And I'm excited to get to that, and a lot of other movies, because this year 2024 is the year of classics that we're doing. So even older than 1980s. So check out that channel and check out that show if you enjoy Oscar talk and talking about really great movies. Sometimes not so much, but most of the time, yes.
All right, guys. If you did enjoy it, please hit that like button and subscribe right here to Welcome to Primetime for all things horror. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys soon. Stay scared.